Okay, so with all of the technology available to me, somehow pointing my laptop at the whiteboard is all I've been able to make work today. We're going to look at chord theory. Now, all of this starts at the 12-tone scale. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-tone scale. Now there's a half step between every single one of these notes. Sometimes people think, well, maybe that's a whole step because there's no sharp in there, but you're not skipping over the sharp doesn't exist. I think you already knew that part, right? So anyway, from A to B, that's going to be a whole step. B to C, that's a half step. So we've got half step, half step. Every one of these is a half step. Okay? So, 12-tone scale. Now, if we write out a major scale, okay, and we can number these guys. These numbers, this is what we're going to use. This right here, the letter tells you the name of the note. The number tells you the function of the note. So, Barack Obama, President, Brad Confer, teacher. Barack Obama could call himself Brad Confer, but that doesn't make him your guitar teacher. He's still the President of the United States. So arguably their function is more important than their name. Arguably, kind of like the sun is in the center of the universe, is arguable. Here to chord theory, we've got to take a look at, first of all, where the half steps are. Now, in a major scale, your half steps are between 3 and 4 and 7 and 1. Okay, 3, 4, 7, and 1. So we should have a half step here and a half step here. Now here's the thing. This has to be true. Okay, this doesn't have to be true. This has to be true because this is a major scale. This is just a bunch of letters. So if this is not true, we have to add, say, sharps or flats or something. So if we look along C to D, that is a whole step because there's a C sharp there. D to E, that is a whole step. E to F, yes, that's a half. So if we look along C to D, that is a whole step because there's a C sharp there. D to E, that is a whole step. E to F, yes, that's a half step. F to G, good. G to A to B. Now B to C is a half step. So everything's good there. Now just real quick, let's try a different key. Let's try a popular one. Let's do the key of E. Alright, so E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. Alright, so now is this the E major scale? We don't know. Let's put some numbers under there. Well, now we've decided that the E is the root. See, I mean, I could have very sneakily written down the C major scale, just starting on the E, you know, ha 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 ha. We wouldn't know that until we put the numbers down. So I've put the numbers down, so now we know that it's the E major scale. But actually we don't. We just know that it's an E scale. We don't know if it's major, minor. We don't know if it's Dorian mode, Phrygian, Mixolydian. We don't know that until we know where the half steps are. The half steps are 3, 4, 7, and 1. So 3, 4, 7, and 1. Now this is the function of the chord or of the note of the tone. This is the name of it. What's more important? The function. So we have to make the letters match this. E to F right off the bat. E to F is not a whole step. It's a half step. So we have to fix that. we need a whole step there. So we can do this. That makes it a whole step. But it also ruins our 1 there. We don't want to do that. So we're going to add a sharp. Now F sharp to G is a half step, not a whole step. We need a whole step, so we add a sharp. G sharp to A is a half step. Okay, so finally we're good. A to B, that is a whole step, not a problem. B to C, this is not a whole step. This is a half step. So C sharp moves this C away from the B. It also moves it closer to the D, creating a half step here, which we don't want. Move this D farther from the C, closer to the E, by adding a sharp. Now we have a half step between the E and the D. So now we have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half is a series of steps that makes up a major scale. That's pretty important because that's what a major scale is. It's also unimportant because it's fairly useless beyond answering question number 3 on the second test that you take in whatever class. But this 3, 4, 7, and 1, this is very helpful. Now we want to look at how we come about chords. Let's go back to the key of C because it doesn't have those sharps and stuff. Okay, now we number it. Okay, so the half steps in a major scale are between 3 and 4 and 7 and 1. Now I keep saying that over and over and over again because, well, I use that information to do quite a lot. Build a house, make a nice dinner. So the 1 chord is the C chord, the 2 chord is the D chord, the 3 is the E chord. So the 1 chord is the chord that's built off of the first scale degree. The chord that's built off of the first scale degree is called the 1, and it's a C chord. Now what are the notes in it? Well, if we skip a note, we see that the 1 chord is scale degree 1, 3, and 5. So we skipped a note, skipped a note. Now if we look at the 2 chord, that one's minor, and we're going to look at why. So we start on the 2, it's a D, right? We're going to skip a note, skip a note. So we have 2, 4, 6. So the tones in the 1 chord are C, E, G. The tones in the 2 chord, D, F, A. Okay. So chords are sometimes called tritones. There are indeed tritones here. They're also sometimes called stacked thirds. The reason they're called stacked thirds is because there's a minor or major third here with a minor or major third on top of here. How far is a minor third? Okay, this is a half step, also known as a minor second. This is a whole step, also known as a major second. This is a minor third, and this is a major third. So a minor third is 1.5 steps. A major third is 2 steps. It's kind of confusing. Let's look at this a different way. Minor third, major third. A third includes 3 notes. So if you go from C to G, that's 3 notes. Sure, you only skip 2 notes. If you think of starting on the C, you just go D, E. That's only 2 notes, but you have to count C. C, D, E. That is a type of third. All right? E to G. E, F, G. That is a type of third. Now, if you cross over a half step, you have a minor third. If you don't cross over a half step, you have a major third. So you have whole step, whole step. There's no half step in there. Whole step, half step. There is a half step in there. So a major third is whole step, whole step. A minor third is whole step, half step. Or half step, whole step, however you want to call it. It can't be a half step and a half step because we don't have any of those in Western scales. So let's look from C to E and move this guy over. 2. Alright, so from C to E, we want to know if this is a major third or a minor third. We know it's a type of third because C, D, E. If you cross over a half step, or if there's a half step in this interval, it's a minor third. If there isn't a half step in the interval, it's a major third. So C to D, whole step, there's no half step there. D to E, no half step there. It's a major third. Now E to G, E to F, it's a half step. So when you go from E to G, you do in fact cross over that half step. You could call it whole step, half step, but it's the same thing, right? So if you're just thinking 3, 4, 7, and 1, is this interval involved? No, it's a major third. Is this interval involved? Well, is this interval or this interval involved? No, major third. If one of those intervals is involved, it's a minor third. So E to G, this is a minor third. Now if we go D to F, right, we've crossed over the same interval, this E to F. So D to F has this half step in it. So that means this is a minor third. Now if we go from F to G, that does not include F to G. Come on, F to A. Whole step, whole step. So that's a major third. So you've got 1, 3, 5. 3 to 1 is a third. 3 to 5 is a third. If this is a major third, this will be a minor third. And you have a major chord. If when you go from 1 to 3, you end up with a minor third, then 3 to 5 will be a major third. This is a minor chord. And that's it. That's how we come up with the different chords. So, knowing that this first interval creates the major chord or the minor chord, and knowing what intervals create the major chord and the minor chord, we can go through and find out what each of these chords is going to be. If it's diatonic, it means there's no altered tones whatsoever. So what you end up with is a major 1, a major 4, and a major 5. Now let's just look at the first interval to each of those and figure out why that's true. From 1 to 3, whole step, whole step. There is no half step in there, that's a major chord. Let's look at the 4 chord. 4, 6, so you skip a note, F to A, whole step. 5 chord, 5 to 7, major third. So these are all major chords. Now the 2, the 3, and the 6 are going to be minor. If we look at the 2 chord, look, 2 to 4, we have the half step in there. Look at the 3 chord, that same half step, the 3-4 half step is in there. So the 3 is also a minor chord. Now the 6 chord contains the 7-1 interval in it because it's A to C. Remember, you gotta skip a note, skip a note. You gotta go 3 notes. 6, 7, 1. So 6 to 1 is the first interval. Now the 7 is the one that's different. This is actually a diminished chord. And so what happens in a diminished chord is you actually have a minor third and a minor third. There's no major third in it. So if you look from 7 chord is actually 7, 1, 3. So it's not 7, 1, 3. 7, 2, 4. Sorry, brain fart. 7, 2, 4. So from 7 to 2, you cross over a half step. From 2 to 4, you cross a half step. The 7 chord is diminished. I mean, what's the point of saying that you're in the key of C major or anything major if the 1, the 4, and the 5 aren't major? And why even bother pointing out what key it's in? And that's sort of why jazz people sometimes don't point out the key, because everything changes so much. It's like if you're not going to follow the rules, what's the point in saying, what's the point in labeling what you're doing with the term, major, minor, C, D, anything like that. Okay, so there's 2 sheets actually. There's a major sheet and a minor sheet that I'll send you, and it would be pretty good to go through like this process right here. Write out the notes in several major keys and several minor keys. Fill out the sharps or flats that you need in order to make this true. Or in a minor key, it's actually 2, 3, 5, 6. And then just write out the tones that make the chords on that sheet, and you'll start to get a better idea of this stuff. But basically, you want to memorize that, memorize that, memorize that. Anytime it's not true, you have an altered chord. Okay, so very quick recap here. First, you've got your 12-tone scale. A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, and G sharp. That is a half step between every single one of those. B and C and E and F have only a half step between them. Naturally, there's no sharp between them. There's no flat between them. When you take a scale, and you just look at the numbers, you have very little actual useful information. But if you put the numbers down below it, Now you have something. Now you know what the function of each of these tones is. The G in this case is the 5. We know that 5 to 1 is the strongest resolution you can have in music. So what is the 1 chord? The 1 chord is the chord built off of the scale degree. The 2 chord is the chord built off the 2nd scale degree. The 3 chord is the chord built off of, see? You get it, right? And 7 is diminished. The 1 chord is 1, 3, 5. You skip a note, skip a note. The 2 chord is 2, 4, 6. The 3 chord is 3, 5, 7. Let's see how fast I can do this without actually messing up, because I usually mess it up. The 4 chord is 4, 6, 2. I'm trying not to think about it, just do it. 5 is 5, 7, 1, 6 is 6, 1, 3, 7 is 7, 2, 4. And I'm pretty sure I just did that right. I'm very excited right now because I'm always messing up the mundane details. Like forgetting to put lines over. Okay, so let's see if I did this right. So on the 1, 1, 3, 5. Yeah, we got the 2 in the middle. 2, 3, 4, 6. Yep, 3, 5, 7. Good. 4, 6, 2. Good. 5, 7, 1. Good. 6, 1, 3. Good. 7, 2, 4. Good. Okay, so all that money and time I spent in college actually taught me something. So what's going on here with this 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord? These are the scale degrees that you have. If the first interval, the lower third, is a major third interval, you have a major chord. If the distance between the 1 and the 3 is a minor third, you have a minor chord. And so that's how we figure out this. And that is always true unless you have altered a chord.